Hello, and this is my presentation, the session for Naturalistic Observation, a reflective presentation by me, Ashley Allen. So I asked my participant, what's her story? Asked her about family, faith, and career, and just any other important memories. Um, so my participant, just demographically, she is a 38-year-old African American woman. She mentioned that she has 4 kids. She is currently working with her lawyer. So we kind of went into a little bit of a deep topic about the custody of her child. So she has 4 children in total, 3 of which live with her full time. The fourth child she is currently working with her lawyer to get full custody of. She intended to give her cousin her first fourth child. So this is a child that she honestly was debating on aborting. But after much thought and after kind of discussing it with her cousin, because his spouse cannot have children, so she was going to give her fourth child to her cousin. She decided to go ahead and carry the baby and give birth. The only thing is, she didn't anticipate falling in love with the child when she gave birth to it. So, what ended up happening is the night that she gave birth, she allowed her cousin to put his name on the birth certificate as the father, but she did not remove her name as the mother. A few months have passed. They were kind of passing the child back and forth. Of course, she was able to get WIC. She produced breast milk, so she was able to kind of provide that to them. And so they agreed to kind of go back and forth with the child. Eventually, her cousin, kind of grew tired of doing that. So he pretty much gave her an ultimatum. He told her, "Hey, I'm tired of doing this. We're not sharing custody. You're not the mom. I would like to make my wife the mom and put her on the birth certificate. So either you take your child back or you give us full custody." So I guess he, thought he called her bluff, but she said, "No, I want my child." And so he didn't anticipate that either. So here we are with a custody case. They're both going back and forth in court. Their relationship as cousins have kind of is very contentious. There's been some negative things to come out about her and vice versa. So right now they are fighting in court for the fourth child. But I think right now she gets the child on weekends. They have the child during the week. So yes, we started off pretty strong, diving right into that. She mentioned that she has one sister, 2 brothers. She lived in one major city in Texas with her mother and father until she reached 7th grade, and then her parents divorced. She moved to a different state, so this is where her life pretty much began. She grew up in church, where her uncle and her aunt were the first pastor and first lady. She had stopped attending that church because she noticed that she would kind of hear from them only when she was unable to make payments or pay her tithes and offerings. Anytime she missed a payment, that's when she would hear from them. But if she was sick or needed anything, she didn't hear from them. So she kind of felt like that relationship was a little fake and fraud. So she stopped attending that church, even though they did go from being Pentecostal to non-denominational. This did not matter. She was kind of over them. Um, she definitely has always had a great relationship with Christ. She feels, like this is even so with her situation, even with having, 4 children out of wedlock. She knows that God is always with her and He always blesses her and protects her children. So for her growing up, her mom spoiled her brother. Well, she has, like I said, one sister, 2 brothers. Her mother spoiled her brothers and her sister growing up, so much so where she knows that if she were to ask them for something, she couldn't depend on them. But the young lady was the one that could be depended on. So she knew that that was her place in the family. Her mom actually has 2 of her 2 sons living with her now, but she still calls her to, and asks her to run errands and things, even though she lives like 45 minutes away. She knows that her sons are not dependable. She mentioned that her mother was not very nice growing up. to her. Like she would, make little comments and, definitely not give her positive affirmations. So she noticed that when she was growing up, and it definitely played on her self esteem. So much so where she noticed it as an adult and she decided to go ahead and take therapy because that truly affected how she felt about herself. And so I asked her about like any important memories or anything that you can think of, that happened in your life, like significantly. And she did remember applying for a job that her friend at the time helped her get. Her friend had like access to these different links to different jobs that were hiring. And so her friend sent her this one link to a job. Um, and my friend, asked her, like, hey, did you mean to send this to me? And she said, yeah. She didn't even think about it. She was just like, yeah, sure. She went ahead and applied for the job and interviewed for the job the same day she got hired. And so she, of course, decided to call the friend to give her the good news of what happened. The friend, of course, could not share in her, victory because she realized she had sent the wrong link to her. The friend had also applied for that same job, but she was not offered a position. She was offered the position. So, safe to say, after that whole situation, she and a friend are no longer friends. But that was definitely a testament to what God has for you. It is truly for you. About her story, right now, she works from home, which is very, perfect actually, because it allows her the opportunity to take her children to school and to bring them back home. Their school is not too far away from their house, so and they don't really have a bus that runs there, so that just gives her, the opportunity to go and take them and bring them back. And of course, she's going to continue to fight for her fourth child. She wants her fourth child to be at home. Her other children already acknowledge him or call him brother, so she's just waiting to win this case, no matter what. She definitely wishes her mother, supported her more and can find it in her heart to give her more positive affirmations, but she's learning through therapy to be okay with it. Um, Her mother has a lot of health issues, and you would think that that would kind of, change her a little bit or just kind of make her put things into perspective, but it doesn't. But regardless, she's going to be by her side until the day that she departs from this earth. Right now, she is not a particular member of any church, but she does attend services online. So, at random, she'll kind of just go through and whatever, the Lord leads her to, or whatever pulls her, is feeding her at that moment. She kind of watches those services and get what she needs from that service, until she decides, on a church to go to permanently. And she did mention too that if she had her way, she would love to be a housewife. Although she has degrees and certifications and experience with working, she would most definitely love to marry a rich man who can take care of her and her kids. So that is her ultimate goal. So, as far as what major events seem to shape the person's development, for my participant in our conversation, there were just many contributing factors that kind of helped shape her development from my perspective. I would say her mother, the birth of her children, and her relationship with her children's fathers. Her mother basically spoiled her two brothers and her sister. Like they were very spoiled. So much so that they didn't really know how to function without their mom because their mom kind of did everything for them. And so she was the one that her mom knew that she can depend on. Like even to this day, she can just give her a call and she knows that she'll be there. Um, she was kind of picked on not just by her mom but her siblings and other relatives because out of her her two brothers and sister are very light skinned. They have a lighter hue. She is more of a darker hue, and so because she was the darkest, she was picked on and kind of you know talked about when she was younger. She her mom hardly ever offered positive affirmation, so of course she attributes all of this to her self confidence and her self esteem today. And so, like I mentioned, she's in therapy working on that. She had her first child at the age of 24, which, at that age, you're still an adult, but, you graduated college, so you probably have, a perspective or definitely an idea of what your life would be like. But now you're a mom, and so things have to change. So she had her first child at the age of 24, her next child at the age of 26, her third child at the age of 28, and this last child was born at the age of 35. Although the births of her children were some of the happiest and most significant events of her life, she was still raised to, she was still left to raise those children by herself. So this is with no help from the fathers, not even financial help. They didn't step in. I think the first child's father, anytime he would get a job and, you know, all of a sudden she would start to collect child support payments, he would quit that job and get another one. That's just kind of how shady he is. And the second child, the second baby father, so I think there's just two fathers, but then one has two of the kids, and the other father fathered the other two kids. So the second one, he already had seven children prior to her even uh, becoming involved with him. So I think that's another reason why she was considering aborting this last one, because for her to slip up and get pregnant by him again, and knowing that he didn't take care of her other child, she really wasn't sure about this whole situation. So um, but she decided to keep it, and like I mentioned, she of course was going to give it to her cousin, but she changed her mind. It's her child. She definitely has liberty to do that, and so she's still fighting for that. So I just feel like these different events, these different people, these variables in her life most definitely shaped who she is today. Um, Most definitely. So, does this person seem to express integrity or despair? According to Erickson, Kale and Kavanaugh. So Kale and Kavanaugh mention integrity versus despair. As people enter later in life, they begin the struggle of integrity versus despair, which involves the process by which people try to make sense of their lives. A person with integrity accepts their life's choices and decisions and can live with these choices, but a person with despair has regrets, second and third guess their choices, and sometimes will blame others for their current positions in life. With my participant, I would say that maybe a few years ago, she was in that place, and she did mention that a few years ago she kind of wanted to put blame on others. She didn't want to, be on the sinking ship by herself. She didn't want to take all the blame because it wasn't just her. But she's come to terms with it. According to her, she has come to terms with how and why she is where she is today. She loves her children and would not have chosen to do things any other way. Um, of course, she knows that the men, they gave her red flags before she even decided to lay with them, but she chose to ignore those flags, and this is what happened. So I reviewed the article Knowing Me, Knowing You, the Accuracy and Unique Predictive. And in that, they were basically just determining if a person just themselves can kind of, predict, if there's any validity in how they would rate their behavior versus someone else rating it. And from the study of it, the psychologists and psychiatrists were kind of able to determine that both carry weight. They both are valid when it comes to, rating your behavior. You can definitely, you rating yourself has, validity as well as others. They can kind of together in tandem, have validity. And so I think, the mere fact that she's so self-aware to kind of go from that place of despair into a place of integrity and accept and be accountable for her, in this whole situation, definitely, to me, proves that particular point in the article. And it says, in what ways has this person coped with loss? What, if any, significant loss has he or she experienced? In the last 10 years, she has experienced the loss of both her grandmothers, her father, a cousin, and an aunt. With the death of her maternal grandmother, she recalls being pregnant with her daughter, and she was able to cope by telling herself, kind of just convincing herself that with her grandmother's death, there was a life that had to be brought in, and her daughter's birth had kind of helped with the loss of that grandmother. She had the death of her paternal grandmother, which actually occurred just last year. She stated that proved to be difficult because of COVID restrictions. It was kind of like the family wanting to come together, but there were kind of, a lot of restrictions at the time. So she could only do so much while there, and not really be able to connect with the family like she wanted to. But then at the same time, her children, were there too. So she had to be focused on them. And this is, kind of a 24-hour a day job with children. So they were kind of able to help her get over that. And then she also received a promotion on her job. So that was something else that helped her manage with her emotions with the death of her paternal grandmother. Her father and her aunt, unfortunately, passed the same year within months of each other. Her father passed, I think her aunt passed, if I'm not mistaken, she mentioned first, and then a few months later, her father passed, which, at the end of his life, I don't think she's always had the closest relationship with him because he did live in another state and he had a family. But her relationship with him still had some significance because he was the opposite of her mom. He did, tell her the things that she needed to hear, like she was beautiful and she was special and, she was his princess and things like that. So I think when he died, that kind of just like, oh, this person that didn't really make me feel odd is now gone. I don't have that validation that I was seeking coming from him anymore. So I think that's what really caused her to take that hard. And then her auntie was also another person that was in her corner. When all the other aunties would pick on her and talk about her, this was the one auntie that kind of had her back. So that was significant as well. And she mentioned that she did lose her appetite. She wasn't really eating. She wasn't really taking care of her body. Her cousin was close in age, so that, kind of took a toll as well. But like I mentioned before, she's in therapy along with working on her self esteem and self confidence. She's also, just kind of learning how to cope with those significant deaths in her life. What role has religion played in the person's life? Well, she, just like I, grew up in the Pentecostal church. She was raised not to wear pants in the church, which was the same as us. She was unable to wear jewelry. Our pastor was strict, but we were still able to wear jewelry. She could not wear fingernail polish. She had to wear stockings and attend multiple services on Sundays. So I kind of related to her with this because I also grew up in the Pentecostal church. And yeah, there were a lot of restrictions based on the doctrine that we had to follow. So she and I were able to kind of bond on our experiences with the Pentecostal church. And so, and although her church did transition from Pentecostal to non-denominational, they still had the same views. I think at this time she had already left, but from what she understood, they still shared the same views as Pentecostal, as other Pentecostal churches. And she said that it was until she moved it back to Texas where she joined another non-denominational church where she felt free. She was free to worship. She was free to, give honor to God. She felt free to serve and worship the way that she felt was, okay. She didn't feel condemned or she didn't feel coerced into doing things someone else wanted to do. Because that's a thing, especially growing up in my church. Lift your hands, clap your hands this way, jump up and down, run in a circle. These are things that the leaders would tell you to do to show God that you're serious and that want to be touched by Him. And God, he definitely examines the heart, and He knows that those actions were not coming from a place of, you know, of genuineness. So she was definitely happy to be at a place where she could truly, genuinely praise God and worship God the way that she felt was right. All right. So some key takeaways. no matter what no matter what her kids, well, she still had to be a mom. She was a mom no matter what. I did observe, during our interview, her kids, one by one would come in and make demands or, ask different questions. And I noticed that she kind of was, would baby them and kind of, coddle them and console them, even though like her first two are, preteens, or I think one is a teenager. And so she would kind of, be really sweet and kind of baby them in a way. Um, and so I did notice that about her, but no matter what, like I feel like, at the end of the day, she's still a mom, and that comes even before herself. And now they kept coming in, so of course we had to pause a lot, we had to stop a lot. Eventually, she did tell them about waiting until the interview was over, but I can tell from their responses that they were going to give us like 5 minutes and then come back and do it again, because she wasn't really assertive with her approach with them. So I noticed that she babied them. That was kind of an observation. And of course, sure enough, the youngest, the third child, because he's not the youngest, but he was the one that was there. The fourth child was not there at the time. But the third child, he came back in and, you know, oh, mommy, she hit me. So, yeah, I had that going on. And that just kind of brought me to, mind of the way her children interacted with her. It brought me back to the attachment styles. And I definitely pulled up another article, and this one was the clinical assessment of attachment patterns and personality disorder in adolescents and adults. And it basically just stated that attachment styles are discussed and mentioned, that attachment theory provides a powerful framework for understanding both the nature of close relationships and the links between mental representations in intimate relationships, patterns of emotion regulations, and psychopathology. And so that's definitely what took me to, that is her attachment style, her children's attachment style with her. And so, another takeaway, I appreciate that she accepts responsibility and takes accountability for her part in her situation. Most people would, probably look at it and judge her, or say, oh, she, has four kids, does she not know how to, lock it up? And she owns it. She accepts what happened. She no longer blames the children's fathers. She accepts her part in that, with laying with men who didn't really prove to be, um, you know, who really didn't prove to have good character to begin with. She acknowledged that and said that she could have dug deeper before allowing them to, um, you know, lay her down. So I like that. I like that she took that. She acknowledged that, and she, took accountability. And I also took away, that I like the fact that she is seeking counseling. A lot of people, especially in the African American community, they look at counseling as something that's weak, or, we have the Lord, so why should we do counseling? And it's like, no, this is a normal thing for people to take counseling. The Lord provides us with these tools and resources, and we should definitely take advantage. And so I love the fact that she is seeking counseling to kind of unpack those things, especially when it comes to her self-esteem and her self-confidence, and just kind of learning what is the cause behind, maybe those decisions with the type of man that she chose to lay with, or um, the decisions that she probably made when it comes to her mom or her family members. So I love that she definitely, took accountability, and she's getting help, and, to unpack it. So those are my key takeaways. Thank you so much for taking the time out to listen.